Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, before we get into the the rough topic of today, guys, please subscribe to the channel down below. We do more breakdowns, especially pre-games, but also post-games. And obviously, with the week of the Backyard Brawl coming up now, we'll have a bunch of stuff. I'll be joining Kuz's Corner this week, and we'll be able to give you guys a bunch of content. But please subscribe to the channel, like the video, dislike the video, leave a comment down below, and let me know your thoughts of the video we're going to be talking about today, which is the loss that Pitt suffered yesterday, 27-21 against the Cincinnati Bearcats. And guys, I had the pleasure of watching this game twice. One in person, and then coming home at roughly, midnight, 12:30, and then really getting after it and watching the tape. And really didn't get done watching the tape till about 3 o'clock in the morning, just because I couldn't believe some of the stuff I was watching. I kind of had it was kind of like a slow death at this point. But for starters, guys, I mean, I'm going to go over a little bit of just what I saw. There was a little bit of good. The majority of it was bad. There'll be a bunch of stuff I get into here, but the first things first, and I'm going to go into the defense first, because there were actually some bright spots in the defense in the second half, and then I'm going to go into the offense about just the travesty that we watched. For starters, I cannot tell you the last time that I watched a Pitt football team under Pat Narduzzi just get absolutely crushed in the running game, guys. I mean, the running game in the first half was just abysmal. Corey Kiner overall in the game, had 20 carries for 153 yards rushing. I mean, 7.7 yards a carry. One touchdown, a long run of 68 yards. Aaron Turner had 2 carries for 22 yards. Emory Jones scrambled, had 11 carries for 17 yards. Just blatant. What's crazy to me too is just when you watch it, they were able to do what they wanted on the ground in the first half. I think they were able to do whatever the hell they wanted. You look at gap placement, job placement. You look at our defensive line, major issues in the defensive line in the first half. I mean, you watch the first drive just in general, you kind of saw how the game was going to really go. You kind of hoped that Pitt really in the first half would figure it out to a term of, what could they possibly do to make corrections during the first half. But just the defensive line did not, under no circumstance, create any type of infrastructure in terms of stopping the run. And then on top of that, when it came to pass defense, there was no pass rush. I mean, I understand it's the first game against an actual, Power 5 opponent. I mean, I understand Cincy just came up from the group of 5. They were in the playoff 2 or 3 years ago. But this is a different staff. We've seen this staff before from Louisville. Guys, I was extremely disappointed in the defensive line. I was really disappointed in the defensive line, but also, too, the linebackers. I thought Shane Simon did not have a good game. From watching the tape, it looked like whenever really came down to running the football, it was not about reading. It was about guessing. And you watch the guy, it was just truly guessing where he had to fill in the gaps. Bengali Kamara had a couple good plays here and there, but he was really absent in the first half. Solomon DeShields, the same thing. I mean, how many times did we have to see a screenplay that just no one was there? And they kind of were lining up to it. You couldn't find a guy. But that goes into really the second half of this. In the second half, at least Pitt really made a defensive stand. They only gave up 7 points in the second half. Overall, Emory Jones was 18 of 26, 125 yards passing, averaged 4.8 yards per pass. In the first half, Emory Jones did not have really any bad throws. In the second half, he had a number of bad throws. He had an interception thrown in the second half, which was very clear. Only 125 yards passing. It goes to tell you just what they did on the ground was just lethal. But two, in the second half, they didn't have that many yards, guys. I mean, the defense clearly made the adjustment that they needed to make in the second half. Okay, in the second half alone, Emory Jones only had 53 yards passing. I mean, the defense stepped up, but when you look at it from a perspective of just if it could have happened earlier on in the first half, it would have been great. But at the same time, though, they only gave 27 points, guys. I mean, overall, I think when you look at Cincinnati, it looked like they dominated us when you're watching the game, especially when you're there in person. But overall, the fact that Pitt was still even in this game kind of just tells me that Cincinnati is really not that good of a team. We just played horribly, not so much on the defensive side of the ball, but really on the offensive side of the ball. And that leads me into the hot topic of just the offense. And guys, I mean, oh my God. Jurkovec played a horrendous game, guys. I mean, that's just putting it lightly. I mean, 10 of 32, 179 yards, 5.6 yards per pass, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But there were just clear throws that just didn't make any sense. Okay, and I'm going to get into it, and fans aren't going to like it, but guess what? It's not just Jurkovec's fault. There was plenty to go around. And this goes to the coaching staff as well, and then we'll get to that topic as well, but Jurkovec just was making throws that just sometimes weren't even in the vicinity of a wide receiver. I mean, like, just no idea where this ball was going or what was happening. I mean, I don't know what happened during practice to now. The things that I had saw or the things, and even the things I had heard, it's like 2 different teams. I have no idea what happened. You saw a guy that clearly when he couldn't step up in the pocket would immediately run out of the pocket, was having issues understanding just the pressures. Okay, I give a lot of credit to when you look at in general being able to escape the pocket whenever there's plenty of pressure, which there was pressure, and we'll go over each individual position here soon. Overall, when you look at Jurkovec's performance, it was bad. I mean, just horrific. Overall, I mean, 10 of 32. Okay. Oh my God. So when you look at this game, Jurkovec, I mean, for instance, when there was numerous times within the first quarter and second quarter, okay, he's off balance. He's just throwing the ball up. And I understand there's pressure, but you just don't randomly throw the ball up. I think there's a couple times where you saw the Konate Mumfield catch down the field. Luckily, he was there. I mean, he just randomly just threw it up. Don't know why he thought that was a good idea. That's not a good thing to do. But just reading the progressions, I mean, to an extent, there were plenty of opportunities for him to read the progressions, and you saw it in the second half to where we had those touchdown drives. He was able to read them. But just, I mean, whether it's balls being underthrown, balls being overthrown, I mean, not in the vicinity. Phil's he's a D1 quarterback. I mean, you've got to be better than that. You have got to be better than what you produced. That was horrible. Okay, but also too, there's enough to go around. For instance, the offensive line that needs to get corrected. Okay, plenty of pressure. I mean, the guy was running for his life the entire game. Okay, I think the offensive line was not what it needed to be. Could not get the run game going. I mean, look at the run game. We rushed for a total of 83 yards. Sebo Flemister, 6 carries for 38 yards. Okay, 6.3 yards per average. Daniel Carter, 6 carries for 25 yards rushing, 4.2 yards per carry. Rodney Hammond Jr., who's supposed to be your bell cow, 6 carries, 21 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. What I don't understand, what I truly don't understand is this, okay? If you're having the average at 6.3 yards per carry, 4.2 yards per carry, why are you not trying to develop the run? Okay? I understand, for instance, when we pre-gamed Cincinnati, one of the things that was very evident was that their passing their passing defense was not good. What we did know is that the offensive passing game for Pitt was not good either. Okay? And that the offensive line severely struggled. Okay? I give B.J. Williams a lot of credit, guys. That's a true freshman. Okay, he's physically gifted. True freshman, jumps in. Okay, I don't know why you wouldn't have started him week 1. Like, when you look at things that, like, okay, you're going to make things vanilla. You're not going to have to show everything. I understand that. But why the hell would you not start a true freshman your first game of the season to get him time and get him reps instead of just throwing him into a game against Cincinnati, a Power 5 opponent? I mean, but that's just the one thing that just really bothers me as well. I understand there's a lot of teams, and there's a majority of teams that don't show everything. But I think in Pitt's case, you had to at least just try to get things going. Try to use certain concepts. Because clearly in this game, they weren't there. The offensive line was not prepared. I mean, just physically getting moved in the first half, clearly. And even in the second half, it didn't matter. But I give B.J. Williams a lot of credit because that's a true freshman that really stuck his ground, okay? Personally, I think he's going to be a hell of an offensive lineman down the road for sure, but you need to allow him to keep getting reps. I think he's going to be a great offensive lineman for Pitt. There's a reason why he was in there starting, okay? I think he's going to be really good. I hope that Pat Narduzzi and Borbley do not pull him at all because that kid can be really good, but you got to have him play. I think that this game was so good for young guys like that because you needed to have that exposure. You needed to get against a team like that. And I think that there needs to be a conversation about who in God's name really picked Cincinnati to be the second or third worst team in the Big 12, because they're not. When you've watched week 1 and week 2 now of the Big 12, Cincinnati is not one of the worst teams in that conference. They're not. They're not. Dante Corleone is for real. He was having his own way with the offensive linemen of Pitt, whether it's in the middle, whether it was Jurkovec, Cradle, obviously Williams. I mean, and it's not just that; it's the tackles as well. Gonsalves was supposed to be one of your better tackles. He needs to get better. There needs to be clearly fundamental things that need to get better. I think Taylor needs to get better. Branson Taylor. Just overall, a bad showing from the offense in general, guys. I mean, when you just looked at just in the game overall, it just looked scattered. Like they couldn't get anything going. It was just like they had dink and dunk plays. Then you had a play down the field. Bob Means makes the catch, but he catches it out of bounds. Okay, to start one of the plays to start the game. Okay. Then fans aren't going to like this. The wide receivers, they need to be better. Okay, all we heard about all spring, all fall camp was how great Bob Means was going to be this year. I was on board for that, hyping him up again. He needs to make plays, okay? And I understand there's bad throws. The majority of them were bad throws, but they were at least two or three throws that should certainly have been caught, and he didn't catch. Konate Mumfield, he had at least a number of catches. If we look back here, I mean, hell, your Pitt receiving, your leading receptions for yards was Gavin Bartholomew with 3 receptions for 80 yards. Konate Mumfield, 4 catches for 53 yards, had 2 touchdowns. 2 damn good touchdown catches, was especially in the second half where he went down, especially caught those. One, for instance, the one he had in the second half, the one he had in the first half, where there was a lot of pressure on him. Number one, being in traffic and being able to make those catches was incredible. I think he could still be really, really good. There just has to be gel. It has to gel together. He had 4 catches for 53 yards. Dejon Reynolds, 2 catches for 36 yards. I think he could be really good. But there has to be time. There has to be time in a pro-style offense to read progressions, to understand where the ball needs to go. Carter Johnson, 1 reception for 10 yards. And obviously, let's see here. Yeah, and then Bob Means technically didn't even record a catch. I mean, there is so much wrong with the offense right now, but it can be corrected, okay? It can be corrected if this team understands, okay, 1, offensive line needs to get better. 2, in my personal opinion, we're not there in practice, but clearly there needs to be some type of quarterback competition again. Okay? If Phil Jurkovec is this much better than Christian Veillard, that's a problem. Okay? I think Christian Veillard certainly has the better arm. We certainly saw better accuracy out of Christian. I just don't see, okay, and I know, Pat, we saw it last year. We saw it during the Kenny Pickett era, which it panned out. It panned out in the Kenny Pickett era, okay? He's going to defend his quarterback till death comes around the corner. But the one thing that kills me about Pat Narduzzi is if that's the thing, if you're going to defend your quarterback, but then Keaton Slovis hits the portal, then why the hell are you going to talk trash about his leadership skills when you're the same guy that kept the guy playing that year? And you didn't take him out. And you didn't put Nick Patty in. There needs to be a conversation about what the hell is going on there. If a guy doesn't have it that day, you need to consider just changing it up. And guess what? If you change it up and it doesn't work, hey, at least you tried something. Because when you look at Jurkovec, it was absolutely horrible. 10 of 32. I'm not sure I've witnessed a game where a quarterback's 10 of 32. There needs to be realistic aspects to this. I'm in the basis of I understand whenever I'm watching the film and you watch the tape, it's never just one guy. There's a play, there's multiple plays where you look at plays where Jurkovec had time and he made horrible throws. There's times where he had time, he made good throws. The majority of them were bad. But when you look at this collectively offense, the collective offense, it's not just on one guy. Jurkovec made horrible throws. The offensive line couldn't block to save their soul. We abandoned the run when we shouldn't have abandoned the run. There were drop passes. There's also times, too, some of these guys aren't creating separation, but can you blame them for not creating separation when they don't have enough time to drop back and throw? Overall, here's my basis of it when you look at this game. The defense is going to correct itself, okay? You saw it in the second half. One, I'm actually happy at least, like, when you look at the passing, Emory Jones was 18 of 26, but only for 125 yards. So the passing wasn't the issue. It's just that Cincinnati in the first half was just running at will. And the majority of their yards came in the first half, guys. I mean, it's just what it is. The defense corrected itself in the second half, okay? We could talk about how in the last drive, they couldn't get off the field on third down, whatever. You can't stop a team every single time. I mean, they did everything. They only allowed Cincinnati to score once in the second half. That's a hell of a job by the defense. That's a great job by Charlie Partridge, Ryan Manilak, Archie Collins, Corey Sanders, Randy Bates. That's a hell of a job on their end. What we need to talk about is the corrections in what this offense looks like under Frank Cignetti. Tyquan Underwood, Andre Powell, Tim Salem. Borbley. There has to be a conversation about, okay, what are we doing behind the scenes to change this? Okay, I understand people were saying, especially too, I had plenty of DMs. Oh, we shouldn't have gotten rid of Mark Whipple. It would have never worked. Guys, at the same time, though, if you look at last year, and I try to tell people this, you're looking at it now. Would you rather have the Mark Whipple offense right now, where you have it just spread out, and you have to have Jurkovec drop back 40 times a game, 45 times a game, like Kenny Pickett? I sure as hell wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I sure as hell wouldn't feel comfortable with that at all. I think when you look at this too, you have to look at too, does Keaton Slovis still here? That could possibly change. But even in that concept, look at Keaton Slovis now. He's out of BYU, barely beating teams, beat Sanford State or Sanford, whatever the hell they're called. 14-0, threw for 80 yards in the game. He wasn't any good either. So overall, I just think that we need to look at it and say, hey, what can we do with this staff? The corrections need to be made. I think the defense is going to be a lot better. You're going to have a lot of tape to correct. I think there's a lot of good tape on here, especially for the defense of, okay, here's what we did in the first half. Here's why we were successful in the second half. We were able to stop the run in the second half. For the love of God, thank God. The passing game, when we were able to deliver some type of pressures in the second half, Emory Jones throws an interception. You're going to be facing Garrett Green this week, who cannot pass the football, is not a good passing quarterback. They're going to try to run the football and establish the run on the road in a hostile environment. You've got to be able to stop the run from the get-go. And you've got to be able to enforce and really just present your will on these teams, especially now going into Morgantown this week. When it comes to the offense, some of it's correctable, but some of it's not. Phil Jurkovec needs to get better. Phil Jurkovec needs to look at himself and understands if he wants to be a D1 quarterback, he needs to do a lot better, one, in preparation, but also, two, how the hell he plays the game. The offensive line, I think that's correctable. I think as you saw last season how the offensive line got better. The majority of guys are the exact same from last year. I think that's correctable. I think Borbley and them will work after that. Jake Cradle's a hell of a leader when it comes to that group. I think he'll do a hell of a job this week getting those guys together, pushing those guys. Matt Gonsalves, another leader on that offensive line, being able to build off of the corrections. Blake Subovic, another older guy. I see the offensive line getting better. The same thing with the wide receiver group. I think they're going to get to work this week. I think if there's more time, especially when there's more time in the passing game, but also to establishing the run, they'll be able to have more lanes. But again, they need to get better as well. Okay. Overall, there are a number of things that can get corrected here. Number of them. The Phil Jurkovec situation, I don't know how that gets corrected. I think that Phil has to get it into himself. Okay. Phil needs to get into look in the mirror and figure out, hey, I'm either going to start taking coaching and really start looking at myself and understanding how to correct this moving forward, or we have issues. Okay. And that leads me into the post-game comments that just absolutely infuriated me. What I want people to understand is this. I understand these are student athletes, but they are being paid. What really just loses my mind to an extent is, Phil, you were 10 of 32. You were 170 for 175 yards. You could barely make a throw at times. And you're going to complain about fans booing you. Dude, you're being paid. You're being paid. You're a Division I quarterback. What do you think is going to happen when you go to Morgantown? You're going to get booed out of the building. If you can't take home boos. There were 53,000 fans there yesterday. By the way, also, too, to the Cincinnati fans, 53,000. That's a larger number than 37,000 that your stadium holds. Okay? Your stadium holds 37,000 fans. In Nippert Stadium or whatever the hell it's called. It's a dump. I had to get that off my chest, too. I love those comments from Cincinnati fans. You play in a high school stadium. Exit left.